Holistic connection. Let's heal. Holistic connection. Let's learn. Holistic connection. Let's grow. Holistic connection. Let's be real.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Holistic Connections, Conversations with Holistic Practitioners. My name is PamelaTopjian. I am your host, and my guest today, I hope I don't butcher your name, Jehan Sattaur. Is that correct?
Jehan Sattaur.
Thank you very much. Okay. And I want to welcome you and ask you to please, share a little bit about yourself and about what you do in the holistic healing world.
Well, I suppose I could ask you what specifically you would like to know.
I know that you've got other interests in the mystical and some mystical experiences. I kind of want to know if they overlap with the services that you offer, hypnotherapy and self-sabotaging behaviors. You're a coach for that. So if you want to explain to people what those things are, if they have never heard of them.
Okay, yeah, well, I'll tell you my life story in a nutshell.
Okay.
I was born into a quite narcissistic family system. We didn't have the language for that yet. At the time, I encountered the typical difficulties. You tell people what's going on in your life, and they would say, "Oh, no, not him. He's the sweetest person," or "She's just the greatest mother ever," or whatever the case is. And so there was that. And I was surrounded by three of them. So everywhere I turned in every room of the house, there was one. And that just led to an early childhood and teenage years full of self-doubt and self-hatred, because especially with my mother and father, their favorite thing was turning everything back on you. And you're never good enough, and you'll never achieve anything that you want to achieve. And you're dealing with very wounded people. So it was natural and normal, I think. In the end, I realized that I was very well molded by that experience.
Yeah.
And in my late teen years, I pretty much reached a head where I just felt like giving up, because I was in the music industry from very young. I started playing on stage at about age 14. And it was the thing that I loved because I felt like it was my opportunity to make people smile. I realized very early that most of the people that will come to a concert are trying to avoid some pain somewhere. They're trying to get joy, generate joy through their experience. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that. I saw myself as the person to be the one to do that.
Yeah.
And I've always loved people in that way. And that fueled my drive for it. It was also an escape for me. And I recognized that. And I just spent most of my time doing that, until I kept having this repetitive sequence of events that would eventually lead to me reaching a pillar of success that required me to sign on the dotted line and sign my life away. And I think I had a bombshell moment, because I had been dealing with alcoholism and things like that when I finally decided to give in. In an environment where everybody's telling you that you're the problem, eventually you believe it.
Sure.
And
yeah.
I used that for a long time to avoid having to take responsibility and fill the gaps with more music and more drinking and eventually drugs so that I could drink more. And I never saw myself clearly. So if I fast forward to age 23, I decided that I had enough. I was going to try to commit suicide. So I did that about 3 different times. And I had what people conventionally call a near-death experience, although I didn't go to a light, fluffy space where the voice of God said you had to go back.
Yeah.
And I just felt as though I was communicated to by two beings, one on either side of me, words that had no audible sound. And that experience shaped me forever, because when I came back from that experience, I slept for about 2 weeks.
Wow.
While I was laying there, I was in the throes of depression, but wrestling really hard with the idea that that wasn't for nothing. And what just happened was bizarre beyond words. I'd never heard anyone talk about that kind of stuff before. And shortly after that, in a very mystical way, my life started to unfold in a more positive way. People started giving me books. My music started doing better. People started contacting me all over from the world saying how much they loved me. And they've been listening for such a long time. And when am I going to come to where they're at? And I was like, what? What just happened?
Yeah, nice.
And I just started getting a lot of help from people outside of the family, outside of the country. And that was what led me to spirituality. I traveled after that and just did my job as a hired gun, playing music for whoever would have me across the United States. And I met a lot of people. I've been to 22 different states.
Wow.
And many of the people that I spoke to were the average blue collar folk, bikers, poor people. And that helped shape my perception of myself and the world. And that was the biggest spiritual gift. By this point, I've become very acutely aware that everything that happens in the natural realm happens in the spiritual realm first. And I think that just set the standard for how I wanted to live my life going forward. And so I decided to dive deep into what is the subconscious mind, because I had a series of synchronistic events where one random tall guy at a bar one night just said, "Hey, have you ever heard of coaching?" And I was like, "No, what's that?" Of course, I turned around, and in regular fashion, as seems to be the theme with my life at that point, he disappeared. And I was like, why would you ask a question and leave? I refer to that as my angel moment, because I realized that that was some kind of weird divine redirection. And of course, being a very logical and critical thinker, I wanted to fact check spirituality as well. So I began cross-referencing everything from there with psychology. And I had studied psychology at university, but I just dropped out of university to pursue music full time. And I decided to re-enroll and figure those things out. And I became radically obsessed with the subconscious mind, because I had another mystical experience with a past life regression therapist that showed me stuff. And magically, when I came out from that, I was healed from lifelong asthma. And secondly, 2 weeks after that, I had seen a person that was in the past life as a suggestion on Facebook, and I talked to her and said, "I just did this thing called past life regression. Do you know what that is?" She was like, "I've heard of it, but I don't really know what it is." So I explained what I experienced and how I saw her and stuff, and she was like, "That gave me chills." So she gave me her number. I called her. We talked all night until like 3:30 in the morning while her boyfriend was on the couch with his arms crossed and quite frustrated. We were laughing and hitting it off, and it turns out that in describing my experience, she remembered me too. She was much younger than I was, so I'm assuming she was much younger and more open.
Yeah.
And that sealed the deal for me. So I was like, okay, so everything in life has this spiritual component that's dictated by what information is in your subconscious. And apparently the subconscious is the majority of you. We don't really do anything else that's not in there. So fast forward another 12 years.
Yeah.
Here I am. And I have been doing it for quite a while as a self-sabotage coach, hypnotherapist, specializing in whatever you want it to be, whatever you want to call it, subconscious reprogramming, or if you want to call it behavioral transformation, or if you want to call it just helping individuals to break destructive internal patterns. And all I do is I show you yourself. I help you see what's inside of you. I don't do anything particularly mystical. I don't wave a magic wand over your problems.
Or the stopwatch, right?
No, none of that. And, I deal with very small cases, ordinary things, and very deep, dark things. And so I know the full spectrum of what life is made up of. I know that things, we have the Epstein files and all that. I've had personal experiences with validation that that's all real based on some of the things. So I've seen a lot. I haven't seen it all, but I've seen a lot.
Yeah.
And so I just do whatever I can to help.
really love so much how you took such internal pain and so much that you went through personally throughout most of your childhood and your early adult years and took all of that and turned it into something really profound and really helpful for other people. So I want to thank you for that because that's an amazing feat in its own. I really appreciate you sharing that story because that's so amazing. I love that. So there's like coaching and hypnotherapy and cognitive behavioral therapy. And you said whatever the person needs, whatever they're going through. So it's not really this service or this service or this service. It's just like melding those things together and helping in whatever way that you can, or helping to guide these people towards their own healing journey or their own spiritual journey or their own self-discovery journey. Is that how that works, or is it specific service?
I think the biggest part of this is blending whatever the person needs. And
Yeah.
NLP and hypnotherapy are not mutually exclusive. NLP is just language patterns, and it works well with typical hypnotherapy processes. And essentially, if I wanted to break it down and give everyone a clear picture in a short space of time, I would say that there's basic techniques. For example, in
Yeah.
hypnotherapy, we use utilization, which simply means whatever you say, I use that against you in a court of law.
Yeah.
Like whatever you say,
We're going to use those words.
yeah,
Yeah.
whatever you tell me is inside of your mind,
Yeah.
I can use that to describe to you your inner world and guide you towards a place that exists that's real for you. And essentially, that's why that works, and that's why I love it. And it's the thing that I love the most. It's the tool I love the most. And where the self-sabotage thing comes in is that you're essentially working with your brain, which is not wired for joy. And you can't make yourself feel an emotion that your brain doesn't want to feel when it has all the evidence
Yeah.
for the opposite, right? So self-sabotage is essentially about the protective mechanisms that cause you to do things that create comfortable pain.
Mm.
And so I really try to dig deep and understand that the resistance that people usually have around ideas or changing themselves is all about self-protection, and they're not being dishonest and they're not being difficult. So
Yeah.
your subconscious mind always is asking two questions. Is it okay to keep this piece of information and it's talking to you all day long? And then if you encounter something, it says, okay, well, is this safe? So if you give a person new information, it's going to say, is this safe?
Yeah.
I don't think so, because this isn't what has been working for us before. So when people get annoyed when you tell them things about themselves, that's their subconscious saying, this is not safe.
Mm.
And it's never going to say, is this true? Okay. So because I understand those concepts and I have those tools, that's how I
Yeah.
help people. No, a lot of it is participatory, and you have to participate in your
Sure.
own healing. And
Yeah.
the people who don't want to do that, well, they're the ones that go on to fail. And usually there's some overlapping narcissistic traits, some false self that no matter what you do, you can't erode it. And that protection mechanism, they can receive certain techniques, so they can stop dealing with anxiety, they can stop smoking, they can, all those things that you hear about in hypnotherapy.
Yeah.
But when the truth about themselves challenges their identity, just like everybody else, their brain is going to process it the same as a physical threat. And so it doesn't matter what kind of person you are, that's really, you're outnumbered where
Yeah.
that's concerned. And so I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a lot of information in a short amount of time. So thank you for that. So do you also do past life regression therapy? Do you do that as well?
I do.
You do. Okay. Yeah. So, are you working with people in person or virtually or both? And how does that work when somebody first reaches out to you for your services?
Ordinarily, I work with people remotely, but I
Okay.
do have in-person sessions,
Okay.
and I usually immerse those people in nature
Yeah.
because it's
Nice.
a much better experience. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me to sit on my couch and have a conversation because
Yeah.
that's not a familiar environment for you, and your brain's leveraging what's familiar, so it's trying to assess again this discomfort. And so because it is in this discomfort, because it's outside of its familiar environment,
Mm-hmm.
I have to put them somewhere that's innately relaxing, that
Yeah.
doesn't engage their threat response networks, right?
Yeah,
And
I
so
love
then,
that. Yeah, in
yeah.
nature. Yeah, we all recognize that as like our home or where we are from or where we belong. That's kind of relaxing for everybody. Yeah, nice, nice.
And so for the majority of people, remote works just fine because they're already in a comfortable environment. And
Right, yeah.
they're less likely to argue.
To argue. Yeah, yeah. So speaking of that, you said they're less likely to argue. So is there what's the biggest kind of question or misunderstandings or misconceptions that you get about hypnotherapy or anything that you're doing? What do people sort of don't really get, or what do they mostly have questions about?
It's still very common for people to think that hypnotherapy is stage hypnosis.
Right.
So I'm going to make them quack like a duck
Mm-hmm.
or something else. Or they are still
Yeah.
in this perception of a violation of free will, which it is not.
Yeah.
It's completely participatory, and the client is completely in control
Yeah.
of the session. I'm just talking with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the most common ones.
Yeah. And I wonder if that will ever come to pass because that's from so long ago. People have been thinking that you're gonna, like you said, that they're gonna lose control or you're gonna have control of their mind, or like you said, they're gonna cluck like a chicken or whatever it is that will ever.
Subconscious throwing up that protective mechanism because a
Yeah.
lot of people say I can't be hypnotized when
Mhm.
in reality their brain has to transition through those cycles per second every day in order to process an onslaught of information, right?
Yeah.
So they don't understand that hypnosis is a natural process of the body. The brain has to, or you would suffer, as I quite comedically say, a series of mini strokes
Yeah.
because it's
Yeah.
not healthy to go without a break, right? Which is why we need rest, we need sleep. And for those people who are extremely skeptical, I find that there's something under the surface that's tied to their identity that they don't want to look at. Something about their
Hmm.
personal history they don't want to look at. And because any ideas that challenge reality tend to get filtered out and replaced with a defense mechanism,
Hmm.
people will say anything, even things that sound harmless and logical on the surface to try to
Yeah.
escape. And it's actually not them, it's just the automatic response.
Yeah. So you also have your own podcast, Boundless Authenticity. I love that name. You want to talk about that a little bit? I know that that's goes in a little different direction, but do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So boundless authenticity just kind of came out of nowhere because I am quite a talker, as you can tell. And people started telling me, you know, you're so interesting when you talk. Why don't you get a podcast?
Mm,
Because you seem to know a lot about a lot of different subjects. And I kind of resisted, self-sabotaged myself a bit.
yes.
And I was like, I just don't even know if that's true. I just have a lot of ideas about things. And eventually I started to do it and I recorded the first episode and I was like, wow, this is really boring. So I decided I should get some guests
Uh,
just to get the ball rolling.
yeah.
And it evolved into what it is now because I'm quite a straightforward, unfiltered person.
Hmm.
And I don't pull any punches. I don't sugarcoat anything. And I used my fascination with what is consciousness to
Yeah.
start the whole thing going. And early on in my spiritual journey, it became incredibly apparent to me that authenticity was the key
Hmm.
to having good health and prosperity and abundance and all these things that people want. And you can't really create a good statue if the material is already dry, right?
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that's how most people think of their lives, like just an unfinished sculpture that they'll never be able to get back to because the
Mm,
clay has already hardened, you know?
I love that analogy. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just decided, let's discuss everything related to consciousness. Let's crack open hidden truths and figure out what the mainstream is avoiding because we've been stuck in this paradigm of do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah.
And whatever I tell you is the right thing, and coming from the media, the powers that shouldn't be, etc. And everywhere you look around you, you see challenges that are inspired by a lack of authenticity.
Yeah.
So I just figured, okay, that's what we're
Yeah.
going to call the podcast then.
Great name. I love it. And so that is also your name everywhere, right? So on Instagram and YouTube, and is it Facebook also? Is that Boundless Authenticity in all those places? And then where else can people find you?
If you want to find me, I'm easy to spot. I'm not hiding.
Okay.
You can just go to one link, boundlessauthenticity.podbean.com. That's PODBEAN.com.
Okay.
And from there, right at the top of the page, you will see YouTube, Spotify, Apple, all the things, Pandora, everything.
Great.
And on Facebook, I have a private Facebook group with
Okay.
2,400 other people that you can join if you want to see what I'm posting about, or if you have things you want to post about, as long as it's not complete garbage,
Yeah.
then you will get through.
Okay. And that's by the same name, Boundless Authenticity.
Yep.
Okay. And if people want to work with you, do they just message you? You don't have a website, right, for hypnotherapy and that they just message you through your social media?
Yes, you can contact me on Instagram at Boundless Authenticity.
Okay.
There's someone else that has an underscore, and she came along and stole the name after. It was already well established. I don't know why you would do that,
Yeah.
but it's clear to see by the picture of my face that that's me.
Okay. Good, good.
And you can email me at selfsabotageinfo@proton.me.
Oh, okay. All right. And we'll have all those links below. So I want to thank you for being here. I know this is short with so much information and I really appreciate it. Is there anything else that you want to make sure that you share or want to make sure people know before we end this today?
Well, I know that money is a factor in people's ability to change. And so I have created a podcast called Why You Self-Sabotage and How to Heal from It. It's available on Spreaker and Spotify at the moment. Two easy places you can find it.
Yeah.
When you look for it, you'll see a animated picture of a woman looking into a mirror that has been broken and she's staring back at herself. This
Okay.
podcast is designed to help those who are struggling to get through the basics of mental health change work. It explains to you why you self-sabotage, why you have perfectionism, fear of failure, all those different things. It's very much rooted in evidence-based research from neuroscience, psychology, hypnotherapy, and some of the episodes are short and other episodes go really way in depth with tons of information. And it's catered towards people so that you don't, because when you're in stress, you don't want to go research how to fix myself, right? You don't want to do that.
Yeah. Or you don't
Well,
have really the energy or bandwidth to do that sometimes when you're really in a state of depression or anxiety or both. Yeah.
yeah, you don't have the computing speed to try to figure all this stuff out. And
Yeah.
so it does have um questions that you can work through on your own that are very, very easy to do, very gentle.
Oh, nice.
That way you can get some beginning help with
Very
that. And
nice.
trust me, I've been there, so I know that once you get your foot in the water, you'll eventually want to dive in and it'll give you the courage to do what you need to do. So I think that that is probably one of the best gifts I could have come up with for people.
That's so great. Yeah. Thank you so much. And like I said, we'll have those links below. So everyone, let's learn and heal and grow together, share this out and get this information out there. And thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. This was the best interview of my life.
Oh my gosh, I am so honored. You've been doing this a long time. I know you've been on a bunch of other podcasts, so thank you so much for saying that. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.